Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual. I am your host, Doug Neill, and today I'd like to talk about skill building. For anyone who does regular creative work, whether that work is just for you personally or it's for part of your job, it's easy to feel pressure to always be improving your skills. And while I think that is worth doing, I think there's nuance to be had between actually building your skills and using those skills. And today I'd like to bring in a visual metaphor that I will sketch out here about skill building that came from an episode of the What Works podcast with Tara McMullen. That's a show about entrepreneurship for humans. I really appreciate Tara's approach to business building and creativity and creative work. This was episode number 151, Thinking Differently, with writer Chris Winley. And I think that anyone who's into visual thinking and sketchnoting, the thing we talk about most on this channel, will really enjoy that episode. Even just referencing the highlights from the show notes page, why writer Chris Winley decided to learn how to illustrate her articles, how doodling has helped her work with her ADHD, how she finds the idea or image she wants to illustrate for each piece, and the metaphor she uses to think about skill building. It's that last piece that I wanted to sketch out here and riff on a little bit, both from the generalized perspective of skill building, no matter what that skill is, but also applying this idea specifically to the development of your sketchnoting skills. So, let's get into it. This metaphor about skill building actually starts with a building, so let's just give it the tongue-in-cheek name, the skill building. It's got a number of floors to it, stairs that take you from one floor to the next. You know how buildings work. And the idea is that as you're working to get good at any given craft, you start at the bottom of this building, and with each new skill that you develop, you move your way up. And this is where you might feel some pressure, thinking that it's not until you get to the very top floor of that building, maybe even onto the roof, you might think you need to get all the way up there before you can make anything meaningful. And it's important to recognize here that there is effort that goes into moving from one floor to the next. Sometimes you will be very confused about how to get to that next floor. Other times it might come easy and you'll be very proud of yourself. It does feel good when you're in that place of having some momentum moving upward, but there's also going to be a ton of frustration along the way. And that frustration may or may not be balanced out by the rewarding feeling of getting some altitude here. So with that as the gist of the overall visual metaphor here, let's get to the main point that Chris Winley wanted to share. And that point is, you don't always have to be climbing. You can hang out on any of these floors and do good work. For instance, even if you've done a ton of sketchnoting and think you're pretty good at spacing out words and images, if you haven't mastered that floor yet, it's okay. You can still make something that's useful and interesting. So don't be afraid to take a break on any of these floors. Those breaks will allow you to appreciate the new skill that you just developed and also help you from burning out on this climb. Giving yourself the opportunity to rest at your current skill level will make the overall journey that much more sustainable. I think it's also easy to not fully appreciate the new skill you've developed and what that will allow you to do. So as you move up each floor, be sure to spend some time enjoying the view from that place as you make your thing, whatever that is, using that new skill that you just developed. So rather than thinking about it as this one continuous climb, give yourself the freedom here to break it up. Once you give yourself permission to spend a bit of time hanging out at the current level of your skill set right now, that begs the question, okay, when do I decide to move up? When do I put in that effort again to climb the next flight of stairs? In my experience, I've found that the times that I want to move up to the next floor are either when I get bored or when a new project demands new skills. That first piece of boredom is probably familiar to you. I think it's easy to recognize when you get in a little bit of a rut with your creative work. And I think often that's because you've been doing the same type of work in the same way for a long period of time. That's your body and mind telling you that you're ready for a new challenge. And then the other piece of a new project is something that might demand new skills, whether you're ready for that or not. So far, we've been speaking in generalities here, so let's bring in the specific skill set of sketchnoting, giving visual form to the ideas that you're working with. all share what the first 7 floors of a sketchnoting skill building might look like. Maybe you start with simple bullet points, focusing on the filtering that you have to do, chunking things up into individual ideas, maybe categorizing them with headers. After that, maybe you develop some mind mapping skills, doing a similar filtering and chunking, but now using more spatial reasoning to lay out those ideas in a way that shows their connections. After that, maybe you build some basic drawing skills and weave some icons into your work. Then the specific skill set of drawing stick figures. Then maybe you set your sights on visual metaphors, blowing up those icons large enough for them to be containers for whole sets of ideas, like the iceberg model. Then maybe you add some more complexity to what you draw and work on developing entire scenes to help represent whatever ideas you're working with. And to take your people drawing skills one level further, maybe working on portraits to represent specific people. I'm sure that there are plenty of other ways that you can break down and organize the specific skills required of sketchnoters, but this example here at least just shows you what it might look and feel like to work your way up this building, and how at any given level you can take useful visual notes, even just with bullet points. This is still my favorite starting point for a lot of the sketch notes I take. So if you're currently working on your sketchnoting skills, don't be afraid to hang out at any one of these floors. Let yourself enjoy the skills that you've developed until that point, and most importantly, put those skills to use. This is the thing that I find to be so important when you're developing these skills specifically. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that your notes need to look good. They need to be pretty. They need to be super illustrative. And I think too often folks spend a whole lot of time and effort trying to get to that polished drawing stage of sketchnoting that they miss out on all of the things you can do prior to that and lose sight of the point that the reason you're developing these sketchnoting skills in the first place is to help you learn new things and maybe share ideas with others. So when you focus too much on developing these skills, moving your way up this building, you lose sight of that point. And you might spend less time actually sketchnoting interesting ideas because you're too focused on the somewhat of a vanity metric of the current state of your skill level, the current floor you're on. So this is a reminder that no matter what floor you're on, make sure you're actually putting these skills to use, not just having your eyes set on the next floor. And to finish filling out this frame here, let me share a couple of examples. The one that I'll start with here is from my experience and relative lack of ability in drawing emotions. I stuck around on this stick figure floor for quite a long time before I put some time and energy into developing the type of facial expressions that you saw in this video. And it was actually this specific video, this new project here, that gave me the motivation and the energy to develop some of these skills. So I spent some time and energy figuring out how to draw 5 specific emotions: boredom, excitement, pride, frustration, and confusion. And if they're not too small, those are the expressions that you see in these stick figures here. The second example here comes from a member of Verbal to Visual, a guy named Benoit, who has steadily been increasing his skills over the past couple of years, and even started doing some freelance work when opportunities arose fairly organically when he had been sharing what he was up to. And then a specific project came up involving making videos. Since this is something that I do here, I occasionally get requests for making videos somewhat like this for other people. And unless there's a lot of alignment for me, like there was with the video that I made for Mighty Networks, I tend to decline those opportunities, but pass them on to other sketchnoters. So there was a project that came my way that wasn't a great fit for me, but I posted it inside Verbal to Visual, and Benoit raised his hand and said, yeah, I'll try it. And that was around making videos, which he hadn't done before. But this specific project gave him a reason and motivation to develop that new skill set. So he had already developed a level of proficiency with core sketchnoting skills. And then this was the opportunity to kind of figure out some of the production skills around recording those sketch notes. This video here, I'm using kind of an analog setup like this with a camera above a table. In Benoit's case, he's using digital tools, so it's more about figuring out the best ways to record your iPad screen and then edit those clips together. But in either case, it is an entirely new skill set and arguably an entire new building the videography building. So if we wanted to expand this visual metaphor right here, we could maybe make this a whole city block, a set of buildings next to each other with complementary skills. For now, though, I think what we've got right here is plenty for this video. I hope it helped you think through a little bit whatever creative skills you're working on, gave you the permission if you needed it to hang out on whatever floor you're on right now, and maybe also identify when it's worth moving up from one floor to the next. If the specific skill of sketchnoting is one that you're interested in building, then come join us inside of Verbal to Visual. That's where you will find a variety of courses that help you build each of these individual skills here, and also related skills like making videos. There's a full course called How to Make Sketchnote Videos, which Benoit mentioned that was going to be his starting point to help him move up to that next floor. I hope it's going well, Benoit. Shout out as well to the What Works podcast. As I mentioned, it's one of my favorites. And again, this comes from episode 151 with guest Chris Winley, so do go have a listen. With that, I will sign off for today. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck climbing up whatever building you're in, and also enjoying that climb, taking plenty of breaks, enjoying the view. That's a reminder to myself to also approach creative work in that way. So bye for now, but I look forward to sharing more ideas with you next time. Till then.